Welcome back. He launched his campaign for NHGOP chairman last week, saying the Republican Party does not exist in New Hampshire as far as organization goes. Strong words from former state rep Steve Stepanek, and he joins us here this morning to explain what he's talking about. Representative, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Adam. I really appreciate it.
So the Republican Party in New Hampshire, you've got energized activists, you've got people out there who, with the energy, they want to get things done. You've got operatives who have a ton of experience and a decent number of deep-pocketed donors. But the NHGOP has really struggled over the last couple of decades. Why is that?
I think initially the GOP was you put an R behind your name. When I first ran, it was like get through the primary. And then you put an R behind your name, you get through the primary, and you're all set. Nobody really had to work hard if you were a Republican. And I think we got a little bit lazy. And the Democrats had to work very, very hard to get recognized and noticed. And they've done a superb job. I take my hat off to Ray Buckley and the Democratic organization he's put together. They've got a great fundraising machine, a great get out the vote machine, and they definitely outworked us, out-fundraised us, out-messaged us, and at the end of the day, we failed at the polls.
You mentioned the fundraising as a key aspect of having to turn things around. What's the plan there to try and boost essentially the dollar draw of the NHGOP?
Well, essentially, in the past, the GOP has gone locally to New Hampshire and tapped donors throughout the state to support the party. The Democrats, on the other hand, have gone to Washington to do that. And they have been very good at going to their special interest groups and selling them on the fact that New Hampshire, as the first-in-the-nation primary state, is some place that they need to be exposed to, they need to play in. And they've been very successful at that. They have, in fact, gotten them to give thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars, not only to the Democratic GOP, but also to all of their candidates. That's what I'm going to do, and that's going to change under my leadership if I'm successful in getting elected. We need to go to Washington. We cannot compete with the Democrats by raising money in New Hampshire when the Democrats are raising money nationally. So we need to open up and get out to Washington, work on fundraising there, and then supplement that with with donations from New Hampshire.
How do you get that Washington money without ending up beholden to that Washington money, still being able to run your own show here in New Hampshire?
Well, again, I'm not running per se for an office, so I am running an organization, the New Hampshire organization, and what I have to convince them of is that here in New Hampshire, it's important to play in New Hampshire. It's important to have a presence in New Hampshire because you're on the national stage every 4 years, and that's what I will be able to do. Speaking
of that national stage, you were one of the earliest and strongest supporters of Donald Trump here in New Hampshire. I think you introduced him at just about every rally he had here. What was the experience like between Team Trump and the NHGOP there in 2015 and 2016?
We worked together well. You know, there were certain people who had issues with the president at the time, but overall we built an extremely strong and detailed voter list and supporter list. And as you saw, we brought people into the party. I was on the ground going to all the old home days, all of the county fairs, and sitting in the booth, signing people up. And over again, we had people coming in saying, I've never voted. How do I register to vote so I can vote for Donald Trump? And I think there's a story, real quick story, that sort of epitomizes everything. I was in the Shaw's supermarket one day shopping, and this middle-aged woman comes up to me and says, excuse me, sir, I know you. I said, I don't think so. She says, no. Don't you work for Donald Trump? And I said, as a matter of fact, I do. And she said, just tell Mr. Trump that myself and my husband and all our friends are supporting him. Finally, someone who is saying all the things that we're afraid to say, and someone who can't be bought. And that message resonated with people, and we brought people in who have never been part of the political process. And that's part of the reason why the polls were so off, because none of these people were in the database. They go to likely Republican voters or likely Democratic voters. These people weren't voters. and we brought them into the party.
Loyalty is such an important aspect of being, on Trump's team. How do you balance that loyalty with the neutral position you would have to take if you're elected chair?
Well, I tell people, I've had that question asked before, and I tell people I was a New Hampshire Republican long before I was a Trump supporter. And what is most important to a New Hampshire Republican, I would say to a New Hampshire Democrat, is New Hampshire's first in the nation primary status. And that neutrality of the party chair is absolutely critical in maintaining that first in the nation status. And I will not jeopardize that. And I will remain completely neutral as party chair if there is a primary.
So if there is a challenge to President Trump, it's hands off from you?
Correct.
So it's always fun to visit you and your business partner, Bill O'Brien. Not quite conservative Laverne and Shirley there, but you guys have kind of a fun office and a fun dynamic. Something you've been working on recently are these Republican meetups to try and bring this big tent idea, get all the Republicans back and talking to each other again. How do you rebuild that concept of unity if you're the chair?
Well, first of all, failure is a great unifier. And everybody's looking around saying, what did we do wrong? And we need to all understand that we have to work together. First and foremost, and there's three things the chair needs to do: raise money, raise more money, and then go out and raise more money. That allows you to do all the other things that are necessary to rebuild the party. But all of the people in the party have to start understanding that they have to work together. Them got to bring everybody together. And as I said yesterday, I had a lot of state reps on Monday who came to my announcement, and I told them now, then I will tell them now, you have to unify as a bloc around Republican issues. And most important, if the governor vetoes a bill, you as Republican state reps and senators have to unify and support the governor's vetoes if we have any chance of winning back the House and the Senate and the Executive Council, keep the governor's office, elect the president in 2020.
You told a great story at your campaign launch as a young businessman in 1980 coming before the Executive Council and then Governor John H. Sununu. What was that like, this first foray into that chamber there back in the 1980s?
Well, again, I came up here in '78 as a young kid, 26 years old. I had $2,000, a machine I didn't know how to run. And I came to New Hampshire from Massachusetts because of the low taxes, low regulations, which allowed me to start my business. As my business grew, I got to the point where I could buy a building. And again, the New Hampshire advantage was there with revenue industrial bonds, which gave me the ability to buy the building. Part of that process was going to Executive Council to get approval. So I'm there with my bond counsel and my banker, packed house at the Executive Council chambers. Governor Sununu was presiding over it, and I'm a 30-some-odd-year-old kid, never been involved in politics at all, so I'm nervous as can be. And I have to get up and give my little talk about what we're going to do with the money and how many jobs we're going to make. And I said, we should, Mr. Governor, we should be able to generate 10 to 15 jobs within a year if we get this bond and we're able to buy the building. And Governor Sununu looks at me very straight-faced and says, well, Mr. Stepanek, that sounds wonderful. Now, you understand, though, that if you don't create those jobs, you have to give the money back. Totally straight-faced. I'm frozen like deer in a headlight, saying, I didn't know what to do. And everybody's looking at me. And then my bond counsel hits me in the side and says, excuse me, Mr. Stepanek, he's just kidding.
The classic Sununu humor there. Steve, we thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll see you there for the vote in January.
I thank you so much.